McKay, I heard you say that only 200 of 80,000 chemicals have been tested for health consequences, and only 5 have ever been removed. If that's the case, that would seem like the industry is, there's no chemical is really regulated at all if only 5 have ever been removed. What's your thoughts on that?
Tell them why they removed DDT.
Well, yeah, if there's any doubt about who's won that argument, it's these companies that make the chemicals. 5 have been banned out of 80,000. That's a small number. And DDT was banned because of the courage of Rachel Carson. I mean, Rachel Carson wrote this series of articles in the New Yorker magazine, which became Silent Spring, and that started not just the banning of DDT. That led almost directly to the first Earth Day, which happened a few years later. It literally led to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. That book for the environment was a little bit like Uncle Tom's Cabin was for the Civil War. I mean, that thing caught some kind of public wave of sentiment and created an entire new generation of thinking. And I do wonder, you see people like Bill McKibben running around talking about climate change, trying to catch that wave. Everyone's trying to catch. There's got to be something. There's got to be a shift, and you sort of think it's coming somewhere, but it hasn't quite happened. I'm not quite sure what it's going to take, but these big shifts happen periodically, and a lot of people are trying. They're pushing on different buttons, and one day something will happen. There are a lot of people working hard on this, and we hope you guys will join the fray.
Start at home. You can get a lot of products biodegradable, so they can actually biodegrade in nature. They can degrade. Otherwise, they don't. And they stay for hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe like nuclear, for sure, stays for millions of years. The thing is, you can do what you can, and there's a lot of companies that makes biodegradable products, so that everything you use at home, from your dishes to your laundry to cleaning, use only pure biodegradable products. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone can do this. It used to be cost prohibitive, no more. You can find many of these in grocery stores. When I'm traveling, I don't have the advantage to have, a big market, a natural market sometimes. And I'm always pleasantly surprised to find out many of the products I buy at a natural food store are actually available in grocery stores now, including organic foods, smaller sections. So these things are available and they're cost effective. The internet is also leveling the field on economics. It's making things less expensive, and many of the large companies, they don't have shipping prices now, and I don't know what the future is going to look like, but unless we get over shopaholicism, I don't think we'll have stores like we have. What's going to happen to all these malls and stores we have when my children and their children's generation grow up, where they buy everything on the internet like this? By the way, it won't be this anymore, it'll be talking. And it will actually read the mind in the next generation and give you additional thoughts of something you may not have articulated. That's where we're heading in the next 20 to 25 years, so you know that.
And add something to that?
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if can you just turn this mic on real quick? You just raised this very frightening specter, which I'd never even contemplated until you just said it. Like the idea that you would be nostalgic about the disappearance of malls is really a terrifying idea. It's like, please shop at Walmart so we can preserve Walmart. Don't just shop. Like the idea that suddenly like a Walmart or a Target or something would be like the thing you look back wistfully on. That's a sign of the time. So I'm sorry.
Exactly, it is. It's true. So you've got to look at, we're going through major shifts. I mean, look at the businesses that we couldn't live without. I used to rent movies for recreation. You can't do that anymore, can you? There were actually stores all over the world that you went in and you rented movies. Yeah, I won't name names, but it was first a VHS, and then we had these little discs, and they're gone. Think about all of the different businesses that no longer exist. So we're going through this change, and all of that is better for the environment, by the way. All of these things are going to be much better for the environment, less building, less chemicals. Amazon now, right here in this state, is starting to test drones. delivering to you. So we are such instantaneous kook cases on the planet today that you're going to be able to pick up the phone and order something and it may be delivered to you in an hour or 2 hours, because the large companies are going to have regional distribution centers and they're going to deliver these things to you. So that's going to take cars off the road. It's going to take a lot of airplanes off the road. Imagine if we all start, and I see this happening, it's already happening. I see in places like Maine and Washington State and Oregon, regional food distribution. Now, not everywhere in the world can you grow food 12 months a year or 7 months a year, but where they can, you're going to see a lot less shipping. You know, I'm still ashamed when I eat a grape this time of the year, because I know it's not coming from this part of the world. It's coming from South America at this time of the year. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of that's going to go away as we start to become more regional in food growing and organic cultivation. The last thing I can say to you is, try to become self-sufficient and reliant on your own life, so that you basically can, in the very near future, inexpensively find a way to generate energy in your house. That's going to be available to us in the next 12 to 24 months, that you're going to be able to buy for a reasonable amount of money a unit that's a battery that has solar panels on top of your house, that you're not only going to generate enough electric for your home, but you're going to be able to sell it back to your local electric factory. These things are really positive moves in the right direction.
Okay, the last statement is interesting because it brings up the point of preemption, that governments at the state level have taken away our right to pass laws locally to ban pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and chemical fertilizers. And I found this out because my wife and I went to the Beyond Pesticides conference, and there was a long list of municipalities that had passed ordinances to ban these substances, but only 7 states allow municipalities to take action, and the state level preempts action in Florida and most other states. So how do we get around that? How do we go to our homeowners association, or here in Osceola County, to our county council and have them take action when they're not allowed to take action because the state has preempted that action?
This is actually a brilliant question.
Yeah.
It's really incredibly relevant, and it's very interesting if you think about political history and political science, because think about the people who typically argue for things like states' rights or getting the feds off your back and all that. Like, it tends to be the right wing. Now, what we have now is local municipality. I was just in Hawaii doing research for a book about GMOs, and in places like Kauai, I'm sure you may have heard about this. In Kauai, they've passed a local ordinance that would require companies to disclose what pesticides they're spraying. And the voters passed this law over the very strenuous objection of these companies. The companies then sued in court and are saying, you don't have the right to limit the use of these pesticides on experimental farms because that is either a state or preferably a federal jurisdiction. Maui went a step further and said, we're just going to ban GMOs. And Monsanto and Dow Chemical put $9 million into a local ordinance, fighting a local bill, $9 million, and lost. The voters on Maui passed this bill. The companies turned around and said, you don't have the right, you voters passed the bill, you don't have the right to pass the bill. This is a state or a federal jurisdiction. This is happening over and over again. And this, as I mentioned earlier today, this is the way companies like it. They like legislation to happen at the federal level because they can control it at the federal level. These renegade counties and cities and states are a real pain for these companies. They got to run around putting out fires all over the place. So this becomes like a very fundamental, maybe even something like a constitutional issue, which is think about it in a place like Kauai, you have companies spraying pesticides on a farm right next to a school. And the people in that town say, we would like that not to happen. And they can't say, this can't happen because they don't have the jurisdiction over their own community. So this becomes a very powerful, I mean, so what are the forces at work here? This is democracy. This is all the stuff that we think we hold dear that is being very pressured by some of these companies.
You know, the way you led into that answer was great, because the powers that be like to throw out words. They've been manipulating the language in this country and around the world. There's a wonderful book you may want to read called Whatever Happened to Kansas. And it shows that they hired word craftsmen back in the 1970s. And so the things that really were dear to Americans' heart are freedom, consciousness, taking care of our fellow citizens, became a bad thing. And they've slowly but surely done the same by manipulating laws and telling you, you don't want anyone to tell you what to do, as they're doing something against you. So they have you watching the game over here as they're pulling money out of your pocket over here. And this isn't happening a little bit, this is happening consistently. But if we could take something that wasn't so interesting, like prohibition, and overturn it, we could certainly turn over laws that pollute our children because we're blowing pesticides into their face when they're trying to be educated. I don't know any person on the planet that has any level of humanity that couldn't do that. But getting more than a few of us yelling and screaming in a room in Florida in late May has to happen. Our initiative is to get this out globally to millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people. And as we know from the statisticians today, we don't need 51% of the people to make change, we need 17 to 18%. And I know globally now there's 11 to 12% of us that are conscious enough to know what's right and what's wrong. We don't have to be told what's right, we don't have to be told what's wrong, we know. And I've watched that evolve in the more than 4 decades I've done my work. So we're poised to do that. At this point, we're poised to do that. And so it's not the 60s anymore. So he said, how do we do that today? My generation, the 60s, we didn't want to have anything to do with anything from the past. Whatever our parents did, what anyone else had done in the past, we didn't want anything to do with. So we were in a position poised at that point to overturn everything. But we failed because we sold out. We sold out. The vast majority of my generation sold out. And they're going to end up with Alzheimer's because of it. And cancers and God knows what else. I believe that the generation my younger children are in today are fed up. I think they don't believe, like you and I believed, in the status quo, in the institutions that were there before. I believe they're better educated than we were, and not as naive as we have been. And I think that we're going to have a renaissance of social change very soon. You're seeing it with the gay community. I never thought I'd see in my lifetime where we have to fight for another group of people. But now gay rights, thank God, is on the table, and we're talking about that. I no longer hear anyone think it's cute to get drunk. That's the next one in the target. When I was young, we used to have comedians that their entire work was making believe they were drunk, and we'd all laugh. I don't laugh at drunk people anymore, do you? We feel sorry for them. So the things are changing. Things are changing. And very soon, we're not going to laugh at people eating meat and dairy food. We're going to feel sad for them. We're not going to get angry at them anymore, because I did it, and I ate lots of it. And we're going to have compassion for them. And pretty soon, we're going to say, you mean to tell me that you stand for something like eating food that's not organic? That you actually feed yourself, your wife, your husband, your children, food that you know has chemicals on it, and you think that that's macho? We're going to feel sorry for those people. So as the numbers grow, and as we intelligently, as we are in this conference, putting our voice forward, and in rational, scientifically supported terminology, and with massive amounts. Do you realize in this conference I sat last night and figured out that you have probably about 3,500 to 4,500 years of experience? I looked at the ages, I looked at the work, 3,500 to 4,500 years of experience in this group of people that you have here. You know? And with that said, can you imagine if we keep preaching and telling the truth, and this resonates with people? That's not just, you know, we're preaching to the choir. Most of you sitting here in this room are the choir. We could all sing together. Ah, let's do it. But we want to get to the people that said, what the hell are they singing?
Okay, this will be the final question, and then if you want to get books signed in the bookstore, you can. So, final question of the night.
Well, this is more of a comment. I'm with Brian. We started the POP campaign. And I want to say a couple things in relationship to the last question. And one is never give up. And the second thing is, as Brian, spinning off what Brian said, there are a number of coalitions that you can reach outside your box and pull people together. One of the reasons that the people in Maui, the Shaka movement, won is they very uniquely pulled together the environmentalists, the Hawaiian roots people of the culture who were just very concerned about their own culture and their own peoples, and the hippies.
Yep, yep.
And they had never gone together on anything, and they beat Monsanto at that particular point. And I say think out of the box because even bills or pieces of legislation are in the country that have never really been approached, such as the American Disabilities Act. You know, I don't think that's ever been used to challenge Monsanto, to challenge us as disabled from all of what we've heard throughout this conference. I think there's a place there to have a dialogue. There's one other thing that I think has never happened is we know farmers have been challenged by Monsanto with the seeds. Well, think outside the box, think opposites. No one has ever challenged Monsanto as criminal trespassing of their seeds on the farmer's property. Yeah. So I think those kinds of things can continue through dialogue and sharing, particularly with other groups outside of who we are, to really find tremendously effective action.
Thank you. I want to honor Rudy for a minute and clarify the role he plays. A number of years ago, when I would come back from abroad, and I started to see the Monsantos of the world so greatly influence governments, they were taking the rights of health freedom away from the publics in Europe, and they've done a great job. Many people who have been healthcare professionals there have been placed in jail. You cannot buy in many of these countries any legitimate supplements anymore at all, and they're on a trend to get only medical doctors, conservative medical doctors too. So I'd come back to my very wealthy friends in the field of healthcare here and tell them, and they would wave the flag and tell me it's not going to happen here, as it slowly was happening. As we've seen our friends to the north, it has happened. And it's called Kodak's ruling. So I decided that my nonprofit organization that doesn't have tons of money would hire lobbyists, since the wealthy people obviously didn't understand how important that was. So we've had lobbyists for about 5 years, and Rudy, my colleague and friend, who was a lobbyist in California at the state level, joined and runs part of that organization together with us. He does all of the work pretty much, and it's called POP Campaign, P-O-P, if you want to support us and learn about legislation. And we've actually helped you save your rights for organic food in this country already. We've protected your rights for supplementation twice in this country. And people don't realize that the way that you play the game is played at the level they understand it. You know, sometimes yelling and screaming in the street and burning things isn't really going to work. But if you have somebody who's passionate, that's a lobbyist, and knows how to do exactly what the lobbyists know how to do from the evil empire, you can get somewhere. And so we have Moms for POP too, and what you said earlier was spot on. How you make changes is you get moms involved. Who beats big corps? Who beats big interest? Mothers. Nothing is tougher than a mother who loves her child. And so we have Moms for POPs.
And our Moms for... Is this on? The Moms for POP, we have a pledge we were seeking 1 million moms to sign this pledge so that we can join each other across the country and really
And
have
around
a
the
huge
world,
voice.
not just across the country, around the
it is.
world, yes.
We're getting people from signing it across the world, so go to our websites and find that, and we have a table here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy.